Hello CFI, this is Priya again. So welcome to the part 2 of the learning process FOI Task B. So I covered 5 points, the 5 elements as per the PTS in the first video. This is the second video to continue, and as I said, this video is just to get you started, somebody who wants to start working on the lesson plan on fundamentals of instruction. But I will highly recommend go back and read Aviation's Instructor's Handbook. That is the knowledge you need. In case I make any mistake, please go ahead and read the book for better understanding. Okay, so let's start from element 6. The element 6 is characteristics of learning. What are the qualities of the learning? Okay, so learning is a change in behavior, right? So as an instructor, it should have good qualities. It should meet our goal. So the qualities or the characteristic of the learning would be the learning should be purposeful. Every student has their own goal, they have own short-term or long-term purpose in their life. So we need to make sure whatever we are teaching that is meeting their purpose, meeting what they want to do. So learning should be purposeful. Number 1, the first characteristic of learning is purposeful. Second characteristic of learning is the learning is result of experience, right? So learning is the result of experience. So you should create good experience. You should create real-time situation where they can use their thoughts, their feelings, they can use their knowledge, previous knowledge, and they can make good outcome of that whatever the experience. Not like a negative experience. The student should not feel threatened. They should have positive experiences, so they will remember and they would help to reach towards the goal. So learning is purposeful and learning is a result of experience. Okay. Number 3 is learning is an active process. Remember, if the student is sitting in the classroom and you're teaching, that doesn't mean that a student is learning. Okay. So student needs to actively participate, answering your question, participating in debates, using his knowledge in real-time situation, and just actively responsive and be able to give you answers. That's the active process, not passive process. So learning is purposeful, learning is a result of experience, and learning is an active process. Just listening doesn't mean that you're learning anything. And learning is multifaceted. Okay, this is kind of different word for me. Multifaceted actually means have different side. So our intention for a student to teach one subject at a time, okay, one concept at a time. But what happened while learning that concept, student accidentally might learn something else, right? And when the learning happens, his attitude will also change, his values will change, his respect for safety will occur. So we just wanted to teach the student about certain things, but with that, a lot of other learnings will happen. So it will not happen in one direction, it will happen in all the direction as a whole. So that's why learning is multifaceted. So again, characteristic of learning. Number 1, it's purposeful. Number 2 is result of experience. Number 3, learning is active process. Number 4, learning is multifaceted. It's had multiple sides. Okay. Now, number 7 on our element list. Good. 7 is acquiring skill, knowledge. How does student acquire skill? Okay. So student acquires skill in 3 stages. Plus, there are certain other things that are very important to learn the skills. Okay. How do a student learn the skill? In 3 stages. One is cognitive stage, associative stage, and third one is automatic response. What is cognitive stage? Cognitive stage of skill learning is basically student just follow. It's the basic stage, the beginner stage. So whatever you're showing the student, they will look at it and they will just try to follow it without having complete understanding. So here, since it's a beginner stage, they will make some mistake. They will do errors. They need guidance. They need some practice. They won't be perfect. Okay. Number 2 is associative stage. Associative stage is because students now have practiced it so many times, they will be able to assist and their own performance. They will know if they're doing anything wrong, and if something doesn't look good, they will know by themselves. There will be less error because they have been practicing for so long time. They know, not only they know what they're doing, but they know why they're doing. They will anticipate the errors. And they'll know what is the next step without thinking so much, without having so many memorized steps. They will just do it without a lot of efforts, and they will need some guidance in technical aspect, but they will not need so many guidance. They will be better at avoiding errors. Okay. The third one is the automatic response. Here, they will do it effortlessly. They will do the skill is become like their second habit. So here you can, if you distract them, they will be still able to do it without paying a lot of attention. It just and if like they can fly the aeroplane and then do the radio calls at the same time. So, and when you ask them, what are you doing so differently because you're doing so well, the response will be because they got a feel for it. It's like riding bicycle. You just get it because you practice enough. That's how you get the skill. But when they're getting the skill, they also want to know what is their progress is. Okay, so they want to know the result. So if they're doing good or bad, the students will like to get the feedback from the instructor. What is their progress? They will also the skill will be developed only by practice. So how do they develop the skill? By practicing. And there will be certain time when you practice 3 or 4 times, there will be something called learning plateaus, because that is the time when they just get so overworked, they stop learning. So when you practice certain maneuvers 3 or 4 times, you change and do something else, and do your maneuvers next day or after 2 days, because learning plateaus is common in learning any skill. This is normal. So as an instructor, we don't want to wear the student out. So try something else. So how the learning skill happen? 3 stages of cognitive stage, associative stage, third stage is automatic response. Also during the learning, they would like to know their progress. They should develop the skill by practicing, and there would be a common thing called learning plateau. Okay, they should not stop it to teach. They are common in any training. Okay, number 8, good job. Now, types of practice. So practice is good. So how many types of practice? There are 3 types of practice. One is deliberate practice, block practice, and random practice. Deliberate practice, you practice certain areas of the skill. You give them feedback until that areas will become good. Block practice is you do the entire maneuver over and over until they become good. But if you do, for example, steep turn 10 times, he will be doing it good. But after a week or a month, you come back and do the steep turn, he probably have forgotten some of it or most of it. So we do random practice. The third one is random practice. You do 1 or 2, 3 maneuvers together, different maneuvers, and when you do the maneuvers, you know that what is the difference or what is the similarity between this maneuver. So student will be able to have a higher perception and will be able to remember the differences and similarities, and they will create their own concept to know those maneuvers and remember the maneuvers too. Okay, so is 3 types of practice. Now number 9 of the element is the scenario based training. What is scenario based training? Okay, so scenario based training is very good for student to apply whatever they have learned on the ground, to apply in a real time scenarios, or you as an instructor, you create a scenario so they can apply their knowledge, their higher level thinking skill, and so they would be able to retain the knowledge. For example, in the flight, you can create a low fuel situation. So whatever the cross country planning they have learned on the ground, they probably have to check the ground speed and fuel calculation in the air and try to figure out what they're doing and how they will be able to use their knowledge there. Probably they won't be do it correctly at the first time, but the second time when they go home, they try to rework and then see the urgency and the importance of using their knowledge, they will be well prepared next time. And second time when you create again the scenario of low level, they would be better at it. So second time, now you can add low level fuel, also a loss procedure that you are also lost. So now they have to use their palette skill in this created scenario of urgency. That is scenario based training, which is very important to understand the importance their knowledge, to use it in the pressure, and when you have that all their senses working, they will remember it better. Okay, and number 10, the number 10 topic is error. What are errors? FAI say there are two types of error. Okay, a slip and mistake. Slip happens when you accidentally do something. So you want to do something, but inadvertently you do something else. For example, if you want to put the frequency of the tower 120.9, accidentally you put it 121.9. That's a slip. What is a mistake? You intentionally do a mistake, that is the error, that is a mistake. Why you do it? Because you don't have proper understanding of that information. You have misconceptions, so you do a mistake. So sleep and error, sleep and mistake both are bad. How do you avoid it? Okay, you can avoid it by practicing, knowing your stuff, learning. So learning and practicing will be able to avoid your mistake. Okay, errors. Number 2, recheck your work. So when you put the frequency 120.9, you think you put 120.9, but double check it, cross check with your diagram, your airport diagram, your sectional chart. Okay. Number 3 is using reminders. So if you want to change the fuel tank from left to right, put your alarm clock, put your clock. If you want to come back to particular heading after maneuvers, try to use heading book before you roll back to the heading, so you don't forget that this is the heading you're supposed to be when you finish your maneuver, right? Another thing you can do is raising awareness of the common errors, that these are the errors and how to recover of the common errors. Also, there's another, the 6th one is error and recovery. So when you know these are the errors, and how do you overcome the recovery? For example, you should like loss procedure. You should know how to know your loss procedure if you accidentally you're lost, and those are the common errors. Also, if you accidentally get into the IFR weather, so you should know how to recover from unusual attitudes. So you know the common errors and you know how to recover from this error. Also, when the error happens, you learn from the error. As a CFI, you tell your student that when the error happens, why the error happened, what did the student do wrong to get that error, so they will understand what will help to avoid those kind of error. Okay, so they learn from the error. So number 11 now is memory and forgetting. What is memory, and how they forget, why memory or forgetting happens. So memory is 3 types of memory. One is sensory memory, second one is short-term memory, and third is a long-term memory. Sensory memory comes from all your senses. Right now I'm in this room, so I am continuously sensing all the organs are working, so all my senses are working, but I'm not going to act. I'm just going to ignore that memory stays for 1 second unless there is some stimuli happen, something unusual happen, then I'm going to act on it. For example, fire alarm. Then I will register that in the short-term memory, working memory, and take action. Okay, or there is a thunderstorm and lightning, then only I'll be able to register that. So that's sensory memory. It's a very short period of time. Second is short-term memory. It is there for 30 seconds. For example, if you're working on some numbers, a phone number, 7-digit number, you'll remember for 30 seconds. After you're done with your work, you will not forget that. You will not remember unless something dramatic situation happen. You really need to, you want to remember, then you will send it to a long-term memory consciously. Okay, so or unconsciously, if it is important, it will get registered. Okay, and short-term memory is called working memory or scratchpad memory. This FASA ATC work on short-term memory. So when the ATC people will go home, they will probably not remember all the airplanes they landed and all airplanes they departed. Only if something unusual has happened. So, but that's the short-term memory, which is there for 30 seconds. What is the long-term memory? Long-term memory is basically is there for lifetime, permanent. So whatever you remember since your childhood, it's all in your long-term memory. Long-term memory, all your information. So if you do purposeful learning, you put real-time situation, you create the urgency. So those learning you want to help student to get into the long-term memory. With the intensity, with different approaches, it is important for instructor to help student to store the knowledge in the long-term memory with practice, repetition, with effects, with real-time situation, scenario-based training. We want to create those effects in the long-term memory because we don't want them to forget. The another thing, why people forget, first place, okay? People forget because they are not able to reach to their memory. If they think they have put in memory, there is a memory in their head, they have something, they have learned something, it's on the tip of the tongue, but they cannot retrieve it because the coding is not done properly. The coding is not done properly without understanding, so the retrieval can happen. The forgetting can happen if there's no proper retrieval. There's a retrieval failure. Second, it can happen when there's a fading or decay. Something which is learned long time ago, and you have not used it for a long time, then yes, it will fade or decay. Okay, something has happened recently, you probably remember it. Then there's a third thing, the forgetting can happen is because of the interference. Why? Because two similar things cause interference. And in storing, so you're not able to recall it because they're causing interference. So interference can cause forgetting too. Another is repression or suppression. Some unpleasant experience or memory that you don't want to remember, that will cause forgetting. That can happen consciously or subconsciously. So consciously is called suppression, unconsciously is called repression. Okay, so if a person does not want to remember the feelings associated with that experiences, then there will be a suppression or repression. Okay, so memories get repressed unconsciously, memory get suppressed consciously. Number 12 is retention of learning. Now you know how people forget, but how you make the student to retain your information. You can help student to retain your information. Number 1 is praise them. Feeling associated with praising, the positive reward will help student to remember. So if they're doing something good, praise them. That will help them to remember because the experience is good. That will help them register in their long-term memory. So retention can happen by praising, but just don't overdo it, otherwise it will lose their meaning. Okay. Number 2 is recall is promoted by association. So if they're learning something, then associate it with the real-time situation, associate in something else which they're doing. So when you associate, it will become a good impact, and they will be able to recall it properly or retain in their head because you're associating the urgency of creating an experience in their life or real-time life. Okay, so favorable attitudes. People will learn something which they want to learn. People will retain something which they want to remember. Okay, so you create urgency that why you want to learn that. You give them importance. Well, why you want to do weight and balance? Because if you don't do it, it will be a big trouble. You will probably lose your life or your passenger's life. So it is, you create the urgency and you create that reason to remember. So favorable attitude, you have to create a reason. Okay, so people will remember something which they want to know. You need to motivate them. Okay, you need to motivate them the why they want to remember certain thing. Learning with all the senses will remember too. So if you want to tell student about gyroscope, you draw a picture about gyroscope, they will just try to imagine their head what gyroscope look like, how they spin, but probably they will not be able to understand or remember that concept next time. But if you really bring the gyro, if you can, show them how the gimbals look like, how it feels, how it spins, how those different axes work, the rotations. So by touching it, feeling it, sensing it, hearing how the gyro is working, probably they will have a better retention because they're using visual, hearing, touching, everything to learn that particular process. Okay. Then meaningful repetition. You repeat some certain things 3 or 4 times. That will help them learn or retain better. Then mnemonics. Mnemonics will be like you use accelerate north, decelerate south when using magnetic compass. Then east is least, west is best when you're adding or subtracting variation on the sectional chart, or you use acronym to remember. So that's how student will remember. Retention. Number 13, transfer of learning. Okay, transfer learning is like when trying to use something and then to learn something else. Okay, so there's a positive transfer, there's a negative transfer. Positive transfer when learning skill A will help learning skill B. So you know how to recover from the stall, you know how stall feels like. So now when you're learning landings, just above the ground after you flare, if you can stall the plane, that will give you a good landing. So learning about the stalls will help you land the airplane better. That is positive transfer. What is a negative transfer? We all know how to drive. We use steering, right? But on the taxi while taxiing the airplane, we use feet. Okay, so beginner for the student, when you tell them to turn left or right, instead of using their feet, they probably will try to use the yoke, because now they have learned driving, which is hindering the skill of taxiing airplane. So that is negative transfer. There's a near transfer, there's a further transfer. Near transfer is when you learn some skill which is transferred in the closely related another subject. For example, someone knows how to write essay in English, that will help them to write letter, or a paper in psychology. What will be the far transfer would be if someone is good at playing chess, that skill they can use in completely different profession in politics. That is far transfer. So as a student, we should know how the learning transfer happens, how we can use building block, how can you use learning one skill like level flight to learn close to stalling or approach to landing or descent. So we plan positive transfer. We try to avoid negative transfer. We don't do teaching if the closely related, which student can get confused. We try to make use of far transfer and near transfer. So all the best, CFIs. I hope I helped you. So I completed all the 13 points from part 1 and part 2. You have a good day. Bye-bye.